Yeah, hi. I am Delina. I am our talent branding specialist here at Thinkific. So we're based in Vancouver, but we're quickly growing our team across Canada right now, which is very exciting. I'm part of our recruitment team, but we work very closely alongside everyone on our people team. So at the start of COVID, our people team as a whole was 6 people. I think we're over 20 now, which is super exciting. So we've broken out the functions a little bit more. But yeah, excited to learn more about what you ladies have also done with your teams and how we've all dealt with COVID together.
Maybe Delaney, you could just what Thinkific does, just a little nutshell of what Thinkific does for the world. Yeah.
That'd be helpful, wouldn't it? Thinkific, we are a course creation platform. So we've created a software for people to create, market, and sell online courses to build their businesses online, essentially. So really trying to bridge entrepreneurship and education.
Awesome. Thank you, Delina. Thank you very much. We'll maybe go to Ashira now. A little introduction, who you are, what you do, what your company does.
I'm Ashira Gabrin. I'm the Chief People Officer at Wave. Wave is headquartered in Toronto, although we have employees all over Canada and the United States. We are a small business financial services platform. So we serve small businesses and entrepreneurs to do their accounting, invoicing, payments, and payroll, and a small business bank account, all in one single place.
Awesome. The very important stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Ashira. And over to you, Maria.
Hi, I'm Maria Cartagena. I am the SVP of People Operations here at Kira Systems. I've been with the company for, it's coming up on 3 years. It's gone by really, really quickly. I don't know if you want to talk about our teams. I mean, I've got a team of about 10 at this point, but the company itself is about 200 people, and we're scattered across, I want to say 7 countries, primarily in Canada, but we do have people in the US, the UK, and then other places as well. And what Kira Systems does is we actually help enterprises, learn or see insights into their contracts that they can't otherwise see using our AI platform. So really being able to do contract analysis at a large scale.
Awesome. Now, do we all feel like we're BFF now? I think so.
Well, Maria and I are BFFs.
We've known each other for a while. Yeah, so it's very nice to meet you.
We're pleased to include Delina.
I was going to say, nice to meet Delina and meet someone new for sure.
Yeah. Nice. Well, I feel hurt that I wasn't included in that there, Ashira. That's okay. That's okay. So today, obviously, we wanted to get you together to discuss specifically remote work and remote mental health. I know it's been a big thing. I'm very happy to report again, mentioning my age, I'm 42, but it's been so good in the past decade and a half to see that mental health is taking such a greater stance as being something important in our societies, that people have the more sort of areas that they can speak to those things in a professional circumstance and personal circumstance. It's less the sort of black sheep hidden in the background. So I guess to kick things off, I would love, and anybody can jump in, I would love to know what any of your companies were doing pre-COVID to sort of foster a healthy mental staff. That's the wrong way to put that. Just a safe place for your staff to feel like they were always taken care of in a mental health capacity. And anybody can jump in and go first with that, what your companies were doing pre-COVID. If there was any things that you were proud to share with us, that would be great.
I don't know who wants to go first.
Go on, Maria.
I'm happy to go first.
I think it was Maria. Yeah, you spoke first.
We're all not going to want to interrupt each other. Pre-COVID, I mean, I think we were doing a pretty good job. There were some benefits that we were already remote company to some degree. So even though we had a presence in Toronto, it is our only office globally. So we had probably about 30% of our employees at that time remote as it was. So we had the benefit of having a little bit of experience on how to manage these things remotely just from the beginning. But initially, like the way we approached mental health was sort of like an overall wellness strategy. And that overall wellness strategy included a number of pillars, right? So one of them was mental health. One of them was financial wellness, feeling financial security, feeling supported by your colleagues, getting involved with the organization, or maybe some of the volunteerism efforts that we were doing. Like there were different ways that we were sort of addressing wellness, and we would we had a strategy for this to begin with. Now, those things included, making sure that things were well taken care of, like your benefits included you and your family, and they were extensive benefits, that our benefits had room for things like mental health and other services. This in particular being an area where it's very expensive to get help. Most help is only available privately. It's really hard to get publicly funded help. So making sure our benefits, as an example, like some traditional benefit plans will have you get $400 per year, towards a practitioner of some sort. We actually grouped all of that amounts together. So there was one bucket of money and employees could choose based on their needs, how to apply that to their services. So, if they needed $2,000 worth of massages, it was certainly available. But if they wanted to put it all towards counseling, they could. Or similarly, if they wanted to put it towards physiotherapy, another service that's quite expensive but highly utilized, especially we have a lot of athletes in our company. So having that available also allowed them to do that. So making sure we had space for it to begin with was really important. We had put together a retirement planning process. I would say in the beginning, it started out small. We're hoping to grow it over time, but making sure people are sort of planning towards their future and making some very deliberate choices about how we did that so that people could either save towards making their first time home purchase or their retirement, depending on where they are in their life. So that was sort of how we were addressing some of the financial needs. We also were really transparent about how we do pay, how we do increases, gender bias checks, all the things that can sometimes impact morale and wellness while you're at work. We were very transparent about how we manage those processes. And then of course we actually had like mental health stuff. In the beginning, it was like really light. It was about our benefits having the stuff that we needed in it. Eventually got to a place where, we had more like lunch and learns. We were, really leaning in on our EAP providers and with other people we knew in the industry who would come in and do lunch and learns on a number of different health topics. And so we were sort of to build up our programming from there. Trying to think. And then there was just activities at the company that we thought were really just healthy activities, right? Lunch and learns are always really great. Making sure people are using their time productively and like engaging in their mind productively is always a good way to maintain good mental health. We had like fitness challenges, that kind of stuff were in place before COVID.
Wow.
There's other examples. I mean, they've all grown to some degree, and we'll wait till we get to the post-COVID world, but those things were already in place to begin with. And certainly a lot of activities within the office to just make people feel engaged and a part of something. And whether that was like food drives or whether that was, participating in projects, feeling like they're making a difference in the work that they're doing, those kind of things all impact mental health, I think, in a really strong way. And then finally, we have a really strong like short-term disability program. Now, we don't often get there, but I would say post-COVID, we definitely had some folks that needed like some time off to deal with some mental health issues, and having a strong program that was not reliant on EI being, such a loss of income for them to be able to address their health issues was always available from the beginning.
That's amazing and such an all-inclusive answer. But the one thing you said there that I think is fantastic, and I actually made a big note, you said, I think you used the analogy of a bucket, that the benefits that are provided, it's just an amount, and to the individual employee, they can choose how that's going to better help them. Whether that be, as you said, massages for an ongoing energy, physiotherapy, or if it's counseling sessions. I think I've never actually heard of another company that does that. That's a fantastic idea.
There are tons that do, but not at our size. Our size, it's really hard to get like a quote unquote flex program for benefits. It's actually extraordinarily expensive unless you go with very particular providers. And so for us, like drugs and, drug reimbursement and dental, it's drugs and, reimbursement and like dental services are also in there and it's separate. But like what every benefit plan has is like a paramedical portion of their benefits. And that's the part that like utilization is typically high. Rates go up every year extraordinarily. It's a part of the plan you have to manage, unfortunately. And it's too bad because we all know as HR practitioners want people to use them. And if they need them, we want to, but sort of like if you use it, you end up going up in rates. So you have to sort of like figure out a way with your benefit provider to structure a program that will give the benefits you want to your employee, but like not kill your benefits budget. It's really interesting. Actually, at our size, I feel like there's less options for that than there are when you get to be like a big bank where you get to have a whole team of benefit administrators that help run a flex program and all those things. That's really difficult at our size. And we found a way to do it with our benefit provider, which was great. And this is how we did it. We sort of bucketed out the paramedicals. Instead of, there's 14 paramedicals on the list, instead of doing $500 a piece, we grouped a number and we said you can use it towards any of those in any which way you want.
Wow. Well, thank you, Maria. I'd hate to be going after that. That was such a great, like, all-inclusive answer. That's just fantastic. I can imagine and I will say this just before we move on, like, as someone who edits videos and does the subtitles, my gosh, you said a lot in a short amount of time. That's going to be a lot of typing to keep
Okay.
those subtitles. But I think when we tag you, I think people will, I can imagine people reaching out to you saying, can you give us some advice about how your company has done this? Because that's fantastic. And thank you for sharing. So, Delina, Ashira, would you like to jump in after that wonderful answer?
Go ahead, Delina.
Thanks. Yeah, thank you so much for going through that, Maria. There was so much great information in there, and I think we have similar goals, and we do it in different ways. So benefits are so important to us as well. So we have we've had bumped up coverage for mental health coverage specifically. So encouraging our team to use $2,000 to go see your counselors, go get the support you need, but also those lunch and learns are so important too. So bringing in our providers, making sure that we're highlighting that EAP that we have to make sure that our team knows that they have access to help 24/7 if they need it, and making sure that we're normalizing that and making mental health part of the conversation. So doing lunch and learns on mental wellness, how do you take care of yourself? How do you deal with stress? What are some ways to manage that, and then putting in place wellness challenges as well and getting our team involved. We have a Slack channel specifically dedicated to mental wellness and mental health, and our team is constantly sharing resources that they have and ways that they've used, tactics that they've used to help support their own mental health and take care of themselves, but also listening to what our team needs. So we do really regular engagement surveys asking what's going well, what's not, what other things can we do to support you, and putting those suggestions into action very quickly, and making sure that our team knows that their voice is being heard, that we're trying to take care of them. And then I think another big thing is just taking the time that you need. I think when we're working from home, having that balance, it's there is no more balance really. It's work and life. You're in the same space, and it can be kind of hard. So making sure that our team knows that it's important that you take the time off that you need, and that we're encouraging them to do that. We have an open vacation policy, which we actively encourage our team to take advantage of, even if you can't, be flying away to a different country, even putting together a list of, hey, here are some staycation ideas. You don't have to go away necessarily to get a break, and making sure that's coming from the leadership level as well. So Miranda, who's our COO, is very vocal about this, making sure that we're taking care of ourselves and making sure that we know that we're not going through this alone. So obviously we have all been collectively impacted by COVID over the last year and a bit here. And it's not easy, making sure that we know that, hey, we're going through this together. We have a team of very dedicated, very high performing people who are driven to be doing a lot of work and they want to be doing well, and letting them know that, hey, if you need to slow down, that's okay. That's why you have a team, and everyone is going through the same thing. So do what you need to take care of yourself, take the time that you need, whether that's flexible working hours, whether that's taking vacation. Take care of yourself and make sure that you're the priority.
Fantastic. One thing you said there, the engagement surveys. Love that idea, and I'm sure there's different versions for different companies. Is that something that, how often are those being sent out? Just out of curiosity.
Yeah, we do those quarterly.
Okay.
So we are recording things like what's going well, what are some themes that you want to be our team to be addressing. We record employee NPS and keep track of that and make sure that things are trending up. But I think communicating the results and the feedback that we're receiving and how we're addressing that is a really big, important follow-up piece to the engagement surveys as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Delina. So far, 2 for 2 companies that are really looking out for the folks. This is great. Okay, Ashira, please and thank you.
Are we still talking about pre-COVID?
Well, it sort of became a hybrid there,
Yeah.
I think.
Okay.
But you know what? Let's let this be organic. If you want to talk about how it's going, that's up to you.
I think, the biggest difference for me is pre-COVID was more about future thinking and the real things. Maria was talking about being connected to something you believe in and choosing a place that you feel will use your skills to the highest capabilities and let you perform well and what your career growth is. And now most people are in a survival kind of day-to-day mode, where we were able to do things at a higher level that applied to everybody, purpose, vision, values related, how to map your career across an organization and really grow through your time at Wave, we're now having to focus more specifically on individual types of people. So as an example, parents need less meetings, less interactions, more structured hours so that they can figure out how they do their at-home school or daycare while they're trying to get their jobs done and have kids all over the place. People that are living all by themselves want more time so that they're not sitting on their own. They want more social engagement. They want completely opposite end of the spectrum things. How introverted people are dealing with this pandemic is very different than how extroverted people are dealing with this pandemic. And I think that there's a misnomer that introverts are having an easier time. In reality, extroverts know how to reach out and connect with people and find a way, even if it's not the way that they would. They like to be the light of the party, and there's no parties going on, but they will make the effort to reach out, whereas introverts won't know how to do that. They're often shy and reserved, and humans need interaction with each other. So everybody's struggling just in different ways, and we're all Zoom fatigued and haven't taken a vacation in a long time, and even the vacation we do take isn't great, and we're all short-tempered and ready to get back to life. And so I think there's a different kind of nurturing that companies are doing now. I think that a lot of it is crisis management, that amount of therapy-like situations that have been brought to me versus people and culture things in the last year. I know Maria's had the same. I think that the level of crisis that we're seeing is more frequent and at a higher level. And so the level of help that we're having to give and the flexibility that we have to provide is certainly greater. So for me, it's like there's so many things we did before that are the same now, but the needs that we had before are not the same now. So we haven't taken those things away, just the way that people are using them and the kind of ways that we have to support people are actually quite fundamentally different.
I can't agree with that more, Ashira. Like, I feel like post-COVID, based on surveys, to your point, Delina, like getting feedback and like just talking to people, we increased, like my team increased their one-on-ones and reach outs to employees proactively, like just to check in, because we were worried about the things that weren't being said, that we knew were sort of brewing under the surface. And it certainly evolved over COVID. I think in the beginning, a lot of it was, like there were, even though we were 30% remote, there were still like a whole bunch of people who weren't remote, right? So having to adjust to remote, we had benefits and things in place for them to get home equipment purchases and all that kind of stuff and get set up, but it was not easy for a lot of people, right? If they live with roommates or they don't have a formal office space in their building and all that kind of stuff. But I feel like the kind of learnings that we focused in on were like, if you take different components of stress, right? So there's stress, there's anxiety, there's like resiliency, coping mechanisms, sleep deprivation, because people were finding that their days were bleeding days into night and there was no clear break from work and different things. Parents, certainly, I think Ashira is a really great call out on how, whether it's parents or caregivers, people who are taking care of someone who is in need of care, they were no longer working a 9-to-5 day, maybe, or they were, and they needed us to stick to the 95 day, or they were like, I can do a little bit of work in the morning before they get started, then I can get a bit of work done at lunch, and then I can get a whole bunch of work done at night when everyone goes to sleep. We had to readjust everything about our flexibility. Like, we thought we were flexible before. We really didn't realize, like, we started putting out protocols on how to run more effective meetings, making sure they're all recorded, making sure you take good notes, agenda notes, making sure that you assign action items. So someone has to catch up after hours, because it could happen that they can't make it at the time that you're having the meeting. And that's okay. Making it okay was the first step, but then being able to say, here's how you can stay a part of the team, catch up, not feel like you're letting anyone down, not, putting that kind of pressure on them, so that they can catch up, was really important. So we started doing that kind of thing, which is like, again, a no cost item, right? This was just about a change in mindset. Like, how do we make it so that they can be flexible and meet their needs? Because they were all so different. We definitely increased certain benefits after COVID. Like, we now partner with a mental health platform that actually delivers therapy to our employees through our benefit program, which was important because people were having trouble getting a hold of practitioners, right? So that was a hard part. we got Teladoc, like all the things that were bringing anxiety. Like I don't want to have to take the subway to the doctor's office in COVID because I'm afraid. And so creating ways for them to have virtual sessions, but a lot of it, I don't know about you guys, but I think it was like just increased communication. I think here, like Ashira, to your point, we were putting out more messages from the company, more supportive messages, more messages about it's okay to take time off. It's okay to not be okay. We're here. And like we were getting specific requests to your point about like things that are like not in your typical day-to-day HR, or maybe our responsibility in the past, but like certainly now talking through things like, oh, I immigrated to Canada to come work for your company and then we shut down. I have no family, no friends here. I'm feeling very alone, my anxiety, all those things. Like how do we find ways to support each individual circumstance? Or we had a COVID case in my family and I now need to segregate and find ways to do this. Like how do we do that in a safe way? And we were being called upon or asked for support, right? In those areas where we maybe there's no playbook for that particularly, right? So
we weren't trained in public health before. We certainly are now.
Yeah.
I mean, it's interesting. It is super interesting. I was saying to Ashira in the past, like I happen to have worked at a hospital many years ago in my past, and I worked there through SARS. So I never thought in my lifetime that I would be recalling from the backs of like the depth of my brain. Like, what did we do in those times? How did we handle quarantining? How did we do all of those things? And it was still a very different environment. It was a healthcare environment compared to like being in a tech environment now. So, and it wasn't as widespread. Like SARS, even though it was obviously really devastating as well, it was not to the level of numbers that this is. So it still wasn't at the same scale. So I felt like even any experience I thought I had was sort of helpful, but like not entirely. We also did company-wide shutdown days. I know some companies did that. We were able to do it. We sort of partnered it because we were trying to encourage people to take vacation. And as much as we said it, we found people weren't doing it. And part of the feedback we got was, to your point, and listening to feedback was around, so like I take a vacation day, okay, good. But like that doesn't stop the 500 emails from coming in on Friday and the weekend. By the time I come back, it's almost not worth taking the day off because then I end up so stressed out about having to catch up on all these emails. So we implemented company-wide days on days that we thought could work, or we could partner it up with a public holiday anyway and extend a weekend. So people got meaningful, like 3 or 4 days where the whole company stopped. And we were really serious about it. Like, don't email, don't do anything, like actually stop, so that the whole company could benefit from that relief. And we did find that made a difference as well.
Yeah. We did the exact same as that because of the vacation fatigue. We always close between Christmas and New Year's, from the day before Christmas to New Year's. And that's always a big relief. And so in the summer last year, we closed the Fridays before all the summer long weekends. Mm-hmm. And for me, the magic of that was people got 4 days in a row and they could add on vacation days if they wanted to. But there were 4 days in the middle of that when nobody was sending you emails, no Slack messages, no missing meetings that you were going to meet. Everybody was off for those extended weekends. And people did comment of all the time that they had taken off, that exactly what Maria had said, that was the most refreshing.
Because it's counterproductive in a way that if you're saying, you know what, I need a break, I'm taking a vacation day, but no one else in the company is. And I know that's how my brain works, that I'm like, okay, I needed a Monday, or maybe it's a Wednesday. And then I'll be sitting there and I'm like, but then I'll think, what am I missing? I'm falling behind. This just means I'm doubling up on my work when I sign back on, because had I been working right now, I would have dealt with any emails or situations that arose. So it is counterproductive. And I think those are both amazing things, like the Christmas break, or tacking onto a long weekend. So it's company-wide that everybody takes that sigh of relief. Yeah.
And you're sitting on your couch anyways, right? So
now there's no space. Yeah.
So, it's just, what else am I going to do? So if everybody's off anyways, there's actually nothing you can do. And everybody finds other things. Go clean out your closets, we actually did a little video, like 10 things you can do with your time off. And, from new hobbies to emptying out your closets to going for, camping trip or whatever. And we actually got little video clips from people in the company. What do you do with your time off? To give people who didn't feel like there was a point to it some ideas.
And just to return as well, one thing you said, and I started feeling anxious. I think it was Maria, you were describing how right now, I think both Ashira and Maria, you were saying that everybody being remote, you're dealing with introverts, extroverts, you're dealing with people with kids, you're dealing with people with roommates, you're dealing with people that have no space at home, pets, obviously that can be a stress too. You're dealing with people who are so lonely because they live alone. There's no playbook.
Immigrants who came to Canada and don't know anyone or anything and can't get a network and don't know how to put their kids in school or anything. Everybody.
They barely knew the city and we shut them in. Like we shut them in, like they couldn't do anything. But yeah, it's crazy. Like had not yet quite set up a bank account yet, or had
Yeah.
not done any of these. Like it's so crazy.
Cool. Yeah. Yeah.
So trying to come up with one sort of set of rules, like, okay, well, everybody's remote, but everybody's not the same. There's no system that you can put in place that's going to help that entire spectrum of situations that people are dealing with working from home. But it sounds like all of you are putting that in place and building something that, God forbid, knock on wood, this comes down the line again in the future. There's going to be playbooks that people can actually share and help each other with. But again, I'm knocking on wood. I hope you can hear that.
Like a COVID playbook, I think all the HR people in the country could probably contribute to in some way, and all the sort of like not normal circumstances. Like we had someone that was approved with work permits to move here with his family, got on a plane. I think he has 3 or 4 children. Don't quote me here. I want to say it's at least 3. They got on a plane and got here and got rejected at the airport, even though, and it was early on in COVID, and it was at a time where we didn't have enough information. Their work permits and everything was approved. We had an apartment booked for them. We had prepared them to have to quarantine when they get here. We had bought them groceries. We'd done all these things that like you don't typically think you're going to have to do. And they got rejected and sent back. And then because they were returning to the United States being in a place where they were also slow on renewing permits, but also the administration was maybe not quite as anxious to provide a lot of work permits to foreign trained individuals. Got stuck in a place where he could no longer work. We can't pay someone who doesn't have legal papers, right? Can't work. So it became like there's new challenges that we really had to deal with that were so different. Or like all the people who picked up and left and went to different places and didn't tell their companies, but maybe moved to a country where we're not really supposed to have people working there off permits, right? Like these mobility things started to happen. So I think we all very quickly had to learn, like, wait, are they allowed to do that? How long are they allowed to be there for? What are the risks to the company? What tax implications are there? Like very quickly. And are you going to, because, I think for some people, they wanted to either move back to be closer to family because they were so alone, or they were looking to make this time a bit of an adventure for them, right? Because in a time where there's like not a lot of joy, they're looking for ways to fill their life with joy so that they can do it from a coping perspective. So
I'm really curious, Delina, what you're seeing from the talent acquisition thing of the reasons that people are changing jobs now when you're talking to them, because that seems to be a pattern that's changed quite a bit from
it's interesting. And I think both of you are touching on so many things. I think throughout the last year, it's been just adapting and then having to adapt again and then having to change your plan again. So even putting together a playbook, like there's volumes that you could put together, because what we were doing last March looks different than what we were doing in June, looks different from what we were doing now. But talent acquisition has been interesting. We went from about 100 people to almost 300 today. So hiring that many people and trying to convince them to start a new job remotely has been an interesting challenge. I think some people were excited by the growth that we were having, but it also took a lot of convincing to get people to leave their companies, because they were like, hey, I'm here in this stable job. I know what I'm doing here. I know the team. I know what I do. I'm feeling confident. And a lot of it is just putting the care into the whole candidate experience and letting them know that you hear their reservations and making sure that we're taking care of them too. So, I mean, we just recruited someone who had been working for a company for the last 8 years. And leaving a company that you've been with for that long to go to a company that you would be starting with remotely, that is a huge shift. So making sure that, hey, we hear you, and making sure that they know about that and that they are taken care of, that we do everything we can to get them all the information they need has been so important, because there's questions that pop up around, well, what does this look like after COVID, after, the Vancouver office opens again? Can I go there? Can I move around? What can I do? Will work change? There's lots of unknowns still, I think. And again, we're going to continue to adapt, but putting a lot of care into it and putting yourself in the candidate's shoes, I think, has been really important. Asking yourself, what information would I need to be able to make this move and feel confident in that and comfortable in that?
And Delina, were you finding that the hesitation initially was like hesitating to move to a new job in COVID was because of like security and comfort, or like security because of financials? Because I certainly at that time, there were a lot of layoffs happening, right, across the industry. Were you finding it was like more on the financial side initially, or was it more just like, I know what I'm doing here and I'm comfortable and I feel secure here right now?
Yeah, there was a couple of things. One was the job security, and I'm comfortable. I know exactly what I'm doing here. I know what's expected of me. This would be a new thing, and it's always there's always a bit of anxiety, I think, starting a new role. But we were also hearing a lot of people who wanted to stay with their companies because they were like, hey, they've taken care of me through this pandemic, and I know that wasn't easy for them. I don't want to put them in a bad spot either. And it's yeah, about identifying the right timing too to make a move.
I think, you know, what I'm seeing on my side, and I don't know if that's reflective what you're seeing, Maria, but people are, the patterns that we used to see are not patterns anymore. We used to kind of know where the higher months for hiring were, therefore the higher months of turnover, you know, September and January as an example. It's all over the place now because environment has influenced. And as you said, the beginning of the pandemic, there were a lot of layoffs, people didn't want to leave. A year later, I'm finding people, good people in great jobs, doing exceptionally well, who are quitting, and you're like, what? Where did that come from? And what they're saying is, there's nothing I can control in my life that sucks right now, but this I can. And even though this is good, I have to change something.
Really?
Yeah.
I
Wow.
find that too. It's like that whole idea of bringing themselves joy or having control over something in a year.
Having control over something. Yes. We also have people for the first time ever that are leaving for less challenging work, to go to companies that they don't like as much because there's some, they can do it, you know, with less expectations. It's less about the things we talked about before. Challenging work tied to a purpose. It is now, I need something to pay bills with the least amount of effort possible. And so, I found the conflict of these two things real and very true. So what Delina had just said, there are people who don't want to leave the companies. We're finding that in recruiting also. They're saying, happy where I am. This time last year, there was a heck of a lot of layoffs coming down. What happens if a third wave comes in Ontario or wherever else and layoffs? I'd rather stick where I am, thank you. And other people who are saying, I have to change something. I have to go to where my friends are going so that I can, you know, this office is open, or this office is, whatever reason that they're making those choices. I've got to take something different hour. I'm doing, you know, customer support, and I can't do something with shifts because my husband has a certain workflow. One of us has to change, right? So it's not always about better anymore. And I think the thing, you know, for me to think about, my boss is like, my CEO was like, how can both those things be true? Some people are choosing to stay and not leave because, and therefore you can't recruit them. And other people are like, I have to change something, I'm quitting. And I think, you know, when we really fundamentally understand people, when we're in a place of fear or anxiety or a world that's sort of beating us down constantly, some of us are very spontaneous and impulsive and just want to keep moving and changing. And others of us hang on to the things that we know, that we find comfort in and are secure. Both are true, not for the same person at the same time, right?
It is personal, 100%.
It is personal, and it's conflicting, but it's not the same people that are reacting like this. They are certain ones that want to move forward and other ones that want to hold back. And so I just think the bigger point here is that the data that we used to have and the normal patterns of the way people made decisions that we used to understand are kind of no longer relevant. And I think what Delina's saying and what Maria's saying, what I'm saying as well, is that we've had to learn to be more flexible to smaller groups of people, to adjust our strategies and the way that we deliver them pretty frequently as the time changes, as the needs change, as the people change. We've had to try things, we've had to learn things, we've had to make different kinds of decisions that we wouldn't have before. We've had to give up on some things, we've had to embrace other things. It has really tested our ability to be flexible, to be creative, to learn fast, and to hold more loosely to the things that we used to have to hold on really tight.
Yeah,
I
it's
love
interesting.
that phrase.
On
Go ahead, Maria.
Hold more loosely.
Hold more loosely. It is interesting what's happening in the market now. And for what it's worth, I don't want to pretend like there isn't still an unemployment problem in Canada, right? Because of COVID and because of the impact of the economy and stuff. So I want to be really careful here about not acknowledging that that is still the case. For the three of us, because we happen to be in a bit of a bubble, we're in a tech industry where there was certainly a huge impact at the beginning of COVID. But I don't know, especially Delina, I'm interested to hear on the West Coast, but here, you know, it is in Toronto, I will say in the last month or two, maybe even 3 months, whatever fear there was in the economy at the beginning of COVID, and you know there were very swift decisions made, lots of cuts. No one knew how the impact of the economy was going to be. In some cases, some companies, their products lent really well to this, you know, economic circumstance, and they did really well through COVID. Other companies were struggling and finding their way, and now, like in the last 3 or 4 months, what I'm hearing from a lot of our colleagues is that sales are starting to bounce back. Things are happening. There are lifts in the economy. Certainly, especially if you sell globally, some places were opening up before others, right? Some countries are in a different part of their path with COVID. And so they were starting to sell very quickly. We've noticed, I mean, there's a huge amount of funding still in the city. And a lot of funding has come in the last few months. And we were sort of predicting that there was going to be an M&A surge because that's what's going to happen after an economy like this. There are going to be companies who are going to be looking to be acquired to be able to continue forward, as opposed to, you know, raising money. So we're noticing things like, I think I read the other day, and I don't remember where the statistic was from, so I apologize for not quoting it, but there's something like 1,600 recruiter jobs. Like, Delina, what a time to be in talent acquisition for you. There are 1,600 roles open right now. And like, if all of those people get hired in talent acquisition, I'm predicting the craziest summer for all of us, okay, when it comes to like retention, because there's going to be a lot of shifts in the market. There's going to be a lot of jobs. This is just an indication of how many companies are predicting growth this year, at least in our industry. So it is sort of interesting what I think is going to happen. Equally, we've seen, Ashira, like you, like different reasons to leave, certainly some promotional opportunities in there, but then also just sort of like, I think I need to rethink my life. Like, I don't know if I want to live here. This has made me realize that I want to be closer to this, or that I don't want to do those things. We've noticed those changes as well. Like, it's not just about opportunity or challenging work. It is more like the deep connection between how much of work impacts your life and trying to make some decisions about how they can make that better because the year was hard. Yeah, so interesting.
Yeah, I think decision making has changed quite a bit too, because I mean, this time last year, there was so much uncertainty around, you know, if you were laid off, how long was this going to last? Should I be looking for a new job, or is this going to be a 2-month thing where it's a nice little break for me and I get to go back to this company and this team that I already know and love? And then I think moving on, it was this growing uncertainty of how long is this really going to last? And now with all the vaccines rolling out, it's even like, okay, well, what does this summer look like? What does September look like for me? What can I do now to help change that? So I think people were feeling stagnated for a really long time, and now it's this additional rush, perhaps, of this hope, this light at the end of the tunnel. It's getting a lot closer, and there's this opportunity now to be jumping on that.
We're trying to figure out right now, I don't know if you guys are having the same problem. So, you know, Canada's plan and having most vaccines rolled out, fingers crossed, by September, right? Sort of the plan. Like, are people not going to take any vacation now and then wait to be vaccinated and all get on planes to go somewhere, right? Like, what's going to happen? Are we going to have like half the company put in vacation requests all at the same time?
Literally, it's going to happen.
It's going to happen. And like, it's going to be interesting because we're trying to encourage people to take time off now. And I know it's, you know, not ideal and everything else, but you know, come September, October, we have no idea what that's going to do to the travel industry. Like, is your, you know, $600 flight to BC going to turn into like $3,000 because there's demand, right? We actually have no idea what that's going to look like. And we still don't know what this is going to look like in other countries, because they may still be shut down or in different places of their vaccination process. But, you know, there was so much in this past year that I felt so much energy was spent on how to reopen the office safely, right? How many of us put together plans and graphics and videos and making it safe and making people feel comfortable if you were to reopen in some capacity, even if it's a fractional piece. And we made a decision, I know Ashira did as well, maybe Delina, you can share it with you. We opened briefly for a very small group of people. It was like probably 5% of the company. Like, it was really small, and mostly not because we felt the need to have them back. It was mostly because they were asking from a mental health perspective to have the office, because they needed the interaction and they needed to be able to leave their apartment and they needed those things. So we did open, we did it successfully, and it was safe, but like, as the amount of work that went into it to make it safe, we ended up shutting down just as quickly. And like, now I'm not worried about reopening. We have a plan. We know we can do it.
Ours has been open the whole time and people have used it the whole time. And the
Mhm.
people that have used it have said it was a massive, like it's a life changer for them, just to
For
have
sure.
a place to go, a proper desk set up. They're living in 500 square feet condos with at a coffee table. Yeah. And
We did
like,
it for mental health reasons. We did not do it because we needed them there, and it was completely voluntary. I know yours was as well.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, it still
Ashira.
is. Those that want that need it come, it's on an as need basis, and people do.
But now the discussion is different, right? Now we know how to reopen the office. That's not a problem.
Right.
Now it's like the conversations around, are people going to be vaccinated, not vaccinated? You can't,
Yeah.
whether or not you can require proof or not proof, and can you ask people to be vaccinated or not? Or,
Yeah, I was gonna say, without stirring the pot, I was gonna say, where's the line fall on that? Like, if companies are looking to move forward and figure out a plan to put people back into an office space for mental health reasons, for camaraderie, for, separating sort of home and work, it's a strange time, because I'm pretty sure a company can't legally say, if you don't get vaccinated, you're fired. Like, there's no way that can happen, but
Yeah.
how are you
You can
gonna
do that
say?
in healthcare. You can do that in healthcare and in sort of jobs where people's lives depend on you and
Mhm.
these kind of things. But in our environments, for the most part, we won't be able to do that.
No,
I do
nor
think
can
they
you ask,
will be,
nor can you ask, hey, have you been vaccinated? Right?
well, they will be based on other countries and how they're doing it. Some
Okay.
kind of, they have a, Israel, for example, has a green passport. China has like a QR code.
That's
So
right.
there will be proof of, and I'm telling you, you will be required to be vaccinated to travel. You
Mhm.
will be required to be vaccinated to go on a cruise. You will be required to be vaccinated to get into a sports stadium or a concert hall or things like that. And so there will be not so much peer pressure, but a very limited way to exist. It's not going to be free like some people do. It just, if you're not vaccinated, there's things that you won't be able to do.
Yep.
So I think that over time will become less of an issue for us, just because people will want to travel, people will want to go to concerts, they'll want to go to, so that that will take care of what the crowd mostly does to get to that herd immunity.
But it's interesting.
But it is,
You and I, Ashira, because we have people globally, we know that we're going to have different rules in different places.
that's right.
There's some countries that are much more tolerant of having those requirements, whereas in North America, the likelihood of us being able to I worked in healthcare years ago, and they couldn't even make everyone take a flu shot. So,
right.
From a human rights perspective, they couldn't even require that. So it is sort of interesting to see what's going to happen now in terms of like requirements. But for me, it's less about, are you vaccinated, not vaccinated? It's about the group, the whole of your employee group feeling safe to return.
Mhm.
That threshold is so different, again, very personal to that person.
Exactly.
Whether they have healthcare issues, or they're taking care of people at home, or they
They're
feel
just
very
they're more anxious.
vaccinated, or they're more
Yeah.
anxious. Some people have a higher tolerance where they're like, I'm not vaccinated, but I'm also young and healthy and don't have any issues, and I feel I'm okay to come back. They may want to come back, but others may not want them there if they're not vaccinated. Right. So that's the part we haven't quite worked through yet. Or we had two statuses of employees. If you either are headquartered or you are a remote employee, because we had so many remote employees already. That status really only dictated a couple of things, right? Including some benefits that they get for being remote, because we're in countries where we have no intention of opening an office. So because of that, we provide more support around like home equipment and all that kind of stuff. So they get different things, but like now we're predicting that there's going to be more people who are home, like headquartered, who are maybe not going to want to return. Like, can I stay remote forever? Is there something like that? And like, we were super flexible before, so I didn't feel the need to dictate rules around this, but I feel like we might have to come up with some, and we don't know what that is yet. And
people won't like
our personality to do that. So
people won't like that because they've been used to so much freedom. So whatever structure we put in place, even if it's a flexible structure, will have resistance to it. And there are some companies that have already gone back and said offices are open and everybody's back, or offices are open, everybody's back core days, or offices are not opening ever again.
And so we never felt the need to have those rules. Yeah. We were just like, every team has different needs, and I don't feel the need to tell the design team how they manage this, or the development team how they manage this. Like, they have leaders, they're adults, they all have different cadences. So long as they get their work done, we're okay with it. But for me, it's like, now I'm going to have to change my benefit programs on the back end if they end up being remote, right? Because like I'm going to go from 30% remote, and there's a cost to that, to potentially being 70% remote. Like, we don't know what that number is, and so like there's a cost difference to that, and so we're going to have to sort of figure some of that out. It's actually like, or in COVID, I didn't feel like I could go anywhere, but other people did travel. And I feel like I didn't get to have that adventure for myself. I would like now to be able to go work from wherever for 2 months. Is that now allowed? Because we allowed that during COVID potentially. So do we allow that permanently going forward? It is going to be, it's going to be an interesting set of like
more changes coming.
more changes for sure.
Earlier you were flexible beforehand, and even now it's kind of like, oh, now we're really flexible. And I think that's the important thing, is asking your team, what do you need? What do you want moving forward even? So we hadn't even reopened our office yet when BC shut everything back down again. So again, we're sending out surveys to our team. What do you want to do? What's going to make you comfortable to be back in the office? Do you even want to be here? Like, how many days a week do you want to be working from home? We've had people move all across, you know, Canada, across BC. Our CTO now lives in Oliver, BC, and bikes every day and goes fishing every day, and it's great. So it's, yeah, I think it's just more flexibility, making sure that your team is engaged. We've really seen that you don't need people to be in the office to be productive at all. We hire very smart, confident people who are passionate about their work, and we have a lot of trust in them that they're going to get everything done that they need to have done. So yeah, I think that's one of the nice things. Tech, we're in this bubble, like you said. We had the luxury of being able to work from home and not be in an office, and I think that made the shift a lot easier. But yeah, I mean, flexibility and continued adapting is going to be the name of the game.
I mean, I think, and I know Ashir would agree with me, and I don't like, there was a lot of talk initially at the beginning of COVID, and it was a little bit of a, I'm going to just put this out there to be controversial, a little bit marketing-ish, to sort of say, we're going all remote from now on. There's certainly lots of big tech companies that we all recognize their brands that have said, we're going to be remote first only, and all of those things. And I was like, I just feel like it's over-indexing in either direction. We have always believed that flexibility was the key moving forward, pre-COVID, post-COVID. Flexibility is the key going forward. And I don't know that I need to say you have to be in or you don't have to be in. Like, it's just over indexing in either direction. And I will say some of these like larger brands that we're all aware of, you know, have said we're going to be remote only, but I know because many of us in our roles take on operational roles. So like I own real estate for our, you know, I own our office, basically the facilities, the furniture, the rent, finding new space, all of those things. And I can tell you from like a space perspective, I know a lot of these larger companies have signed massive lease deals, like hundreds of thousands of square feet, which indicates to me that they are going to return back to the office, even though they've indicated from the beginning of COVID that they were going to stay. Like I think there was an article in the paper about, and I don't know for sure what they're going to use the space for, but I want to say it's like Facebook has like, it's like over 700,000 square feet in Manhattan. Like nobody takes on that kind of space in Manhattan unless they're planning to consolidate all of their offices, have people return. Like it's certainly not going to be used for a data space, right?
No.
So those are the kind of things I think are going to happen at some point. There will be, you know, I don't think the office is dead is what I'm saying. I think that it's going to be flexible. And I think you're going to, as HR practitioners, we're going to have to find ways to make, you know, companies have to find ways to make, instead of like making people come back to work, find compelling reasons to make them want to come.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's the key. That is the key. I'm really sorry to do this, but I have to prepare something before my 4 o'clock meeting. So I'm going to have to jump off.
You know what? I want to say, just before you jump off, I wanted to just say that I think everything you've said, I'm going to steal a couple of things that were said, that the future in HR, the future for all of our tech space, the future for remote versus going back to the office, the one phrase is we should all hold more loosely. Sure, that's what you said. I love that phrase. Also, I think the three of you, I'll connect you if you want by email, but I think you've started the conversation and the opening chapters to a book called The HR COVID Playbook, Baptism by Fire. I think that seriously, like everything you shared today, I think is the beginning of a book that could really help others that are doing what you do. And I just really want to say thank you, all three of you, for sharing. That was the most quiet I've ever been during one of these. I was just a passenger along for that conversation. So thank you so much for joining us. Is there any last comments you want to make before we wrap this up? Because I heard your calendars binging, dinging there. Anything else you'd like to say before we wrap this up?
Thanks for having us. It was obviously we had a lot to say. So.
Oh my gosh, it was fantastic. And I'm going to have my work. I'm going to share the whole video with my team and give them the challenge of finding the best parts to start editing, because it was fantastic. So thank you so much to all of you. Do you want me to share your email so you can say, I know two of you.
We have it on the calendar. So.
Oh, you've got it on the calendar. Okay, please stay in touch, because you three, you're going to change the world. I love it. Thank you.